Well, it's a good morning from him, that bloke there sitting on the stool, and it's a good morning from me as well. Welcome to Paul Archer's Monday live stream. Except, of course, it's not Monday, it's actually Tuesday, but that's a long story. We won't go there on that one, shall we? Let's go online, shall we? And get ourselves going to all you guys out there in mortgage world or financial services world, whatever is your world. I was at a CBD event yesterday in London, part of my fellowship of professional speaking association, and it's a peer group. It's great. I love it. And it was like, into London, freezing cold. I got up at 6 o'clock, and I left the house at 6:15 to get the train. It was so cold. It was unbelievable. But such is life. I had a good time. I had a really good session. So welcome to Tuesday. Hope you're good. Hope you're well. Hope you're enjoying your end of January, really, isn't it? Because the world is going quickly through 2023, and all things look quite quiet, as they say on, if you're a history buff, all quiet on the Western Front. It's a great film, actually. It's won quite a lot of awards, I think. But I'm off to Wipers in March, or Eeps as it's pronounced. All my Belgian friends will probably criticise me for calling it Wipers, but of course the British troops in the First World War called it Wipers, like Plug Street. It's the same sort of thing, isn't it? They just use the English phraseology. I'm off there to do a tour around Ypres and the new battlefield walk that goes from a Newport at the beginning all the way down to the Swiss border, and that's where the Western Front is. So it's almost like 200-300 kilometers long. It's huge. So I'm doing that in March. Anyway, you don't want to hear about that, do you? So hope all is good with you. It is all quiet on the Western Front as far as the mortgage market is concerned. Quite a lot of brokers, advisors are wondering what's happening, seeing what's going on, and we had a little bit of decent news actually last week. You probably read about it. Andrew Bailey, they wheeled him out, and he got talking about interest rates. As you know, he's the head honcho at the Bank of England, and although it's a committee that determines interest rates, he's the vocal headpiece of the Bank of England. And he was saying, because inflation's kind of come down a little bit, that he feels that bank base rates will probably peak at 4.5%. Obviously, a bit more than they are at the moment, but what that means is it's not going to continually rise during the year. So I think that's great news for all people involved in the mortgage sector. What will that mean? Well, it probably means that interest rates will peak at 4.5%. That's the Bank of England base rate, by the way. That doesn't necessarily mean that all rates will, and we'll have to take a look at some figures in a second for you on that, because we've got to take a look at exactly why rates go up, and the reason, of course, is inflation. And inflation, okay, it's dipping down a little bit, and the Bank of England reckon that inflation will come down even more. But there's two types of inflation you've got to look at, really. There's what they call the core inflation. So if you strip out things like energy prices, food prices, these things bring inflation down slightly into what they call the core inflation, and that's where it's been embedded into the economy. And I think inflation will come down, or the rising rates of inflation will come down, but it'll stop at, I don't know, 6-7%, something like that, which represents core, because that's baked into the economy. You see, that's the whole point. People's pay rises are going up now in the private sector and public sector, and all goods and services are going up as a result. And that's like a core area. And I think it'll take a long time to reduce that. I mean, a long time. I think a couple of years, because it's baked into the economy. So I think interest rates will stay quite high for quite a while. So what does it mean for interest rates? Well, it means they'll stabilize. It means that we'll have more confidence in the market. There'll be better sentiment. The press will probably talk better stories about it, and people read those, don't they? House prices, well, there's early signs that they're not plummeting, which is good news for everybody, of course. But the mortgage market is more than just buying and selling houses. We know that. A lot of mortgage brokers appreciate that and understand that. So I think the news is quite good for the sector. I really do. Now, what's going to happen to interest rates? Nobody knows. But let's have a quick look at a graph that I picked up during the week, which is quite a nice one, actually. It shows how interest rates, fixed and variable, how they've moved over the last 25 almost 30 years. I just want to share this with you because it's quite interesting to see how it's going to pan out. So I just want to flick over to the graph for you so you can see that. Let's just flick to the screen. Now, for those of you listening, you can't see this obviously because you can't, but for those of you watching, you certainly can. Now, I like this particular um, graph. Get it back in. There we go. Now, I like this particular graph because it shows interest rates since 95, and we're at 2003. And it's got 4 different sets of rates here for you. You've got the 2-year fix, which is the light sort of blue. You've got the 10-year fix, which is the dark blue, the 5-year fix, which is blue, and then the variable, which is pink. Now, as you can appreciate, of course, that all the rates follow each other roughly. We had the financial crash then 2008 when rates came tumbling down, and throughout the noughties and the teens, I should say, and then the pandemic as well, as you can see there. But here's where it's interesting. That's 2022. Now, of course, last September we had the issue with the mini budget, and the variable rate has rocketed upwards, as has the fixed rates as well. And I'm interested there in the blue one there at the top, which is a 2-year and 5-year fix. 10-year fix is a lot lower. Now they're around the sort of 5% mark now, aren't they? The fixes 5 and a bit, probably depending on what sort of scheme you've got. And with variable rates will go up as the Bank of England goes up. So we're probably looking at sort of the 6-ish percentish, probably for most of the year, which you're going to have to get used to. So take a look at the graph there. If you go back to 2008, before the financial crash, boom, it went down. We were tickling along, fixed and variable, at around the 6% mark, since the turn of the century, since 97, 98, when Tony Blair came into party. We were quite used to those rates. They are back again. This period since the financial crash of quantitative easing and loose monetary policy has meant rates have been very low. So we're going to have decently high rates for quite a while now. And it's getting used to it. It's understanding it. It's appreciating that that's part of the deal now. So you need to look at mortgages that allow customers to be able to afford that. I want to take a look at affordability in a minute, because some people are coming up for big shocks on that at this stage. So we'll talk about that. So what does it mean for lenders then? Well, again, another piece of interesting news this week or last week, which I was picking up. It's quite an interesting one, actually. It was a chap who was talking about the mortgage broker world. There was an article in the trade press, very good article actually, and he was talking about getting away from working from home and going back into the office, because he felt that if you're a mortgage broker, being with other mortgage brokers helps you to learn, and that's absolutely true. But you don't actually have to be in an office to do that. You can actually learn on video. But he was talking about grizzled, experienced mortgage brokers that have been around for a few years. And what's happening, you see, is because new people have joined the industry in the last 2-3 years, have latched onto technology, rightfully so. And the big technology is the sourcing software that we use now, and some of it's really good. But many brokers are relying too much on the sourcing software. And his argument was that the lenders now are operating so quickly that they don't actually cope with updating the sourcing software. Just think about that for a second or two. So a lender's introduced some new schemes or whatever it is, new rates, new fixes, whatever, and they haven't got around to changing the sourcing engine data, because it is actually kind of a manual process. Somebody's got to change it, got to go in their key and log on and change all the data. Okay, it's automated to a degree, but it's usually marketing or somebody's got to do it. And they're like delaying it a little bit because they are, which means that if you want to get the very latest deals from lenders, using a sourcing software isn't actually going to get it for you. That's interesting, isn't it? There's a little bit of a conspiracy theory coming up for that one as well. But on the other hand, of course, something that is put onto the sourcing system and then you think that's great, by the time you contact the lender, it's gone, it's been withdrawn. So things are happening so quickly now, the sourcing software can't really cope with it. So he was saying that in the old-fashioned world of broking, we got on the phones, we knew what lenders were offering, and fair play to him. But the conspiracy theory is that lenders, of course, are enjoying the high interest rates because they're making fatter margins. That's how lenders operate. I'm talking about the the high street lenders, the big bulky vanilla lenders as well, and some of the specialist lenders. But it's mostly the high street stuff, really. And they're making good profits now. And they've got lending targets like everybody else, big ones too. And they've relied on the broker market to lend this money. Of course they have. But over the last few years, they've invested heavily in technology to allow people to go direct to them, and they're very much working on that. So you can kind of see where they're going. They're making big profits now. There's a lot of people whose fixed mortgages are coming up for renewal, and lenders are encouraging people to go direct to them. Dare I say it, they might have different rates, different schemes for direct to them business, which is a little bit upsetting to read about that. And it's beginning to happen because if they don't update the sourcing engine in time when they've introduced a new scheme, they're kind of doing it anyway, aren't they? Because they're not showing brokers what the new rates are. So the key here, as a mortgage advisor, mortgage broker, if you run your own business or you're part of a bigger firm, it doesn't matter. You've got your customers, their rates are coming up for renewal. You'll want to deal with them, help them. Of course you do. The key is to incubate them. Incubation. I'll talk about incubation next week. I'm going to use my brandy analogy next week, which is great. Me going to Wipers, of course, French. That's Belgium, isn't it? But of course, heading on into the Somme, which is northern France. Brandy is the king of liquor out there. So the brandy incubator. I want to share that with you because you have to incubate your clients. If you don't have a CRM system which has all your client data on there and where you keep in touch with them, then you really do need to look at doing that. Otherwise, you will lose out this year. So that's my message for you from the latest that's been going on. All right, let's take a look at another topic today for you. And I want to talk about affordability. So I'm going to head over to the whiteboard for this one. So let's head on over to the whiteboard. Oh, the on-air side didn't go on, did it? So let's see if we can fix that, shall we? Because we've got to be on air, haven't we, when it comes to live stream. Ta-da! That's better, isn't it? Hope you're good, by the way. Hope all is well with you. So let me just flick on over to my whiteboard and talk to you over there on that camera there. We've got a number of cameras around here that kind of talk to me. I have to make sure I'm looking at the right one. So I'm talking to you, as they say. Affordability is a key problem at the moment with people because they've got used to paying a mortgage payment at whatever rate it is. I was reading about this young couple who were renting in London and they bought a place last year, and they said when they bought it, it was great because the mortgage was a fraction of what they were paying in rent. And they could afford many other things, which is fantastic because that's all changing now. Sub 2% mortgages are gone. I think for a long, long time, they ain't coming back, guys. We're talking 4.5%, 5%, 6%. Because now the mortgage rate has increased for these people. It's 300 or 400 quid a month, which is a lot of money. And everyone's going to have to try and find this from somewhere. But the argument is, of course, that lenders, when they approved the mortgage, they did actually stress it, or they don't need to stress now. Of course, they did stress it at 3 or 4% more, or whatever it was. So it worked out affordability. But they have been lending a lot of money to people because they've had to, for people who don't afford houses. So it is getting quite tricky for some people to maintain their payments. And lenders are now beefing up their arrears department so they get to talk to people. People like Step Changes, Citizens Advice Bureau, talking to people about affordability problems. But it's when people's fixed rates come up for renewal that they're going to be hit hard by a sudden jump of £400-500 a month. That's when people will start to struggle. And you have to have empathy for people in that situation. So Airbnb, which of course are the rental site, fantastic company, Airbnb, done ever so well for themselves. They did a bit of research. So we're talking here about, I think the topic here is affordability. And you will have conversations with your customers on this, affordability. It'll be part of your request to get an MOT going, a mortgage MOT, call it what you like. So you'll be wanting to have conversations with people about affordability, and you're very good at talking to people about this sort of thing. So Airbnb did a survey, and they commissioned something like 2,000 or so people. And they found out that 77% of homeowners, there we are, 77% of homeowners. So they commissioned 2,000 people. Now, bear in mind that Airbnb have a bias here. They're quite keen for people to do that. But what they were looking for is 70% of the people are looking to rent some of their property to boost their income. Of course, Airbnb are in that business. They're going to encourage with the right questions, aren't they? And I know 47%, they said, are quite keen to rent out a room in their property. But the problem they've got is that lenders don't allow this, because if you look at it visually, you've got your property. So say, for example, you've got your house. There you go. Let's put a little chimney on there as well. Or wood burner going off on their wood burners, and very unpopular at the moment in towns and cities because all the particulates are not good. But this person's got a mortgage, and the mortgage, say it's with a specialist lender or it's with a high street lender, it doesn't make any difference. The mortgage has what's called the mortgage deed. And the mortgage deed is the mortgage contract, if you remember. So when somebody buys a property and they take out a mortgage, the mortgage deed is something they sign. They sign all the covenants, promises, and they have to adhere to the contract. And the whole point is that the lender lends money to them and they pay it back. The lender has the property as security, but the deed is actually the security. That's the contract. Now, in the deed, it says for most people, "Thou shalt not sublet." And that's the problem what Airbnb recognise, of course, that most of these people, 47% of people, wanted to rent out some of their property to make a bit of extra money, but their lenders won't allow them to. Now, a lot of people just ignore it anyway and they rent out the property, don't they? My mate next door does, and I don't think he really worries about contacting his lender because people don't. And if lenders don't find out, they don't know, do they? So, everyone's wise, aren't they? And Airbnb is a very popular way of renting your property. But I'm not talking about renting a property here because somebody's got to live there, haven't you? So if you've got this property and you're living in this property, you've got to keep living there. You can't just rent the whole thing out. We're talking about renting a room or getting a lodger in. Now, lodgers are very different things, and that's where Airbnb started. It was called Airbnb because the bloke that said I had an airbed in one of his spare rooms, and he would rent that out to anybody that needed a room. So that's why we call it Airbnb, bed and breakfast. So the whole point is you've got a room upstairs, maybe you've got a loft conversion, say, with a bed up there, and you're willing to rent that to a lodger. Now, the whole great thing about lodgers is that lenders are much more amenable for you to have a lodger. Well, they don't want you renting your house out, you see, because you're not there anymore, therefore you're not maintaining it, not looking after it. So that's the big issue lenders have got. But to actually rent a room, most lenders will actually agree to that. You have to contact them. Don't keep it quiet. Let them know what you're doing, and they will often give you permission for that. Now, the great news is, of course, that we got this rent a room allowance, the government's rent a room scheme. So let's put that in there, rent a room. Now, rent a room, oddly enough, was invented in the last major house recession that we had. It was created, I think it was 1992 or thereabouts. John Major's government at the time took over, and we had a terrible recession in 1991. Housing market in the southeast and London, plummeted. People lost a lot of equity on their property, and mortgage rates went right upwards, and people struggled terribly. I remember getting a letter from the Abbey National, who we were with, my brother and a friend. We had a joint mortgage, and our mortgage rate went up to 16%. And I don't know, it wasn't a big mortgage. What was it, 65 grand or something back then? But our payments were £900 a month. I mean, come on, just take a look at that. £900 a month. And that was interest only, if I remember rightly. And it was hard, but the three of us had jobs, so we could just about afford it. But a lot of people therefore rented out a room. And the rent a room allowance was created, and what that gives now is tax-free income. It's currently 7.5 grand a year per annum. So that's a lot of money. So you can rent a room. That's the whole point. Not a house, but you rent a room at whatever you want to rent that for, 500 quid or so. Keep it within the 7,500. And that's a very good way of bringing in some extra money in order to pay your mortgage. And I think that's a good thing all around. Now, Airbnb will allow you to do that, of course, which is why they wanted to have that survey. But the government have done it as well. Bim Affordability, the MP, has done an all-party parliamentary group saying allowing homeowners the flexibility to rent out the rooms. The government are encouraging this because they don't want lots and lots of repossessions, do they? They really don't want that. And I think that's good news all around. So if you're talking to clients about affordability, don't forget the rent a room. I think that's a good option to have a look at if somebody's really struggling to make payments. And Airbnb will do it for you. Of course they will. They did the survey. I hope that's been useful for you. All righty. Okay. So that's rent a room. All very interesting, isn't it, when it comes to affordability? All right. Let's just finish off today then. Let's finish off our live stream. I want to talk to you a little bit about what's coming up. We've got a bit of an exciting product or service that we've got to offer you. And this is to do with equity release, one of my favorite topics, equity release, because when it comes to releasing equity, you do need to have a qualification, as you know, and equity release, there's a couple of qualifications that you can have. So we've got some exciting news for you coming up very soon, because what we're looking to do is introduce a one-day workshop for equity release. As you know, you need to pass the exam in order for you to get permission. Then your network, whoever needs to give you permission to do that. See, the problem that a lot of brokers have got, like yourselves, is you want to diversify. You've got clients who are talking about, the retirement side, the pension possibly. They've got a house and they've got a pension pot. They're wanting to borrow some money maybe into retirement. And the first step for you is to get this exam out of the way. They call it ER1 or SARA. That's the IBF people do that one. But you may be a very busy practicing mortgage broker, mortgage advisor, maybe even a financial advisor, and you're lacking time to do any study. You haven't done an exam for a while, and you don't really look forward to it. And you don't know what you don't know, because the syllabus itself is fairly wide, but there's a lot in there that you already do know, but you don't know what you don't know. So what we've done is we've created a one-day workshop. We put this together back in 2019. We've been running it for a number of insurance companies as a white label event. And we've probably run about 50, 60 of these one-day workshops. But what we've done in this one-day workshop, which is a clever thing, I think, is we've made it very interactive, first of all. So it's online, so you don't have to go to a classroom. It's online. It's usually about 10 people, which is a great number. It's very, very interactive, with case studies, quizzes, activities, lots of things going on. You will not be narrated to with a PowerPoint deck, I promise you that. So for the full day, and it's a 9:30 to 4, we'll keep you as involved as possible. Many people have said, how refreshing it is to be fully involved during the day. So that's one thing we're going to do for you, because you're busy people. The second thing is, we only teach you stuff on the one-day workshop that you probably don't know, because you don't know what you don't know. You know a lot already on the syllabus, and a lot of you will be able to take the exam, get very close to a pass mark without you doing any reading at all. But we'll teach you the things you don't know, or you haven't talked about or studied for years, which are things that we know that brokers and mortgage advisors and financial advisors don't practice very often. So we're quite keen on that. So we teach you stuff just to remind you of what you know. So at the end of the one-day workshop, you should be in a position to be able to take the exam the following day. And people have. People have taken it the following week. Some people are a little bit more cautious, aren't they? They've had a weekend revise, or they take it the following day, and they are passing because of what we've taught them. It's fresh in their mind from the workshop. Now, we've also got some bonuses for you. So we give you access to our boot camp for a couple of months as well. So if you do want to have a week, maybe you're watching a few videos, etc., on some topics, you can do. Our boot camp, by the way, is a full structured, covering all the areas of the syllabus for you, with videos like me talking with a whiteboard and stuff like that. So a lot of people like that. In the boot camp, we give you access to a revision guide. And a lot of people like the revision guide. This is I think it's 180 pages or something. You flick through it, it's full of bullets and graphs and tables. It's all written in a different way to the textbook. And people love reading that because it catches all the information they need. And there's a test pack as well. We've got a lot of tests for you. So they come in PDF in the boot camp. So you get that as well as part of the deal. So we're quite looking forward to it. So it's coming up in end of February. So we'll let you know the dates if you're on our database. If you're not on our database, get on it. Sign up for one of our database somewhere along the line, or just contact me and get you on there. We'll let you know the dates as well. So you do need to think about booking as soon as possible, because it's a one-day workshop and it'll be a good investment for you. You'll get your equity release exam out of the way, and then you can take a look at the equity release marketplace, which is brilliant. RIOs and lifetime mortgages and all the things that make a difference, because it's a massive marketplace. It's one thing you really should be doing this year. While things are a little bit quiet, you might want to think about doing that. So I just wanted to let you know about that. So I'm quite excited. Well done, you. Well done, everybody. All right, so I think we wrap up now, don't you? Because it's come to the end. Hopefully you've enjoyed a little bit of a session today. I've enjoyed myself as always. I'm looking forward to seeing you again next week, when we've got a few more extra topics for you. Remember my incubator. I'll talk to you about how to incubate your customers or your clients in the past so that you never lose business, which is key to the whole process. So we've got that coming out next week for you. Other than that, have a great week, everybody. Enjoy everything that there is for the week to offer you. Hopefully the weather's getting a little bit warmer, but I hear there's a bit of an Arctic bomb coming over, or some sort of polar vortex. The press have been talking about really cold, snowy weather in February. I don't know if that's going to happen or not, but who knows, eh? Who knows? But anyway, enough of that. Let's give you a little picture there to see you off with some music as well. Enjoy everything the week's got to offer you, and I'll see you all again next week. Bye for now.